Hey there, I'm Radical Dreamer, and this is a preview of The Outcast, Episode 7. The Outcast is a podcast owned by myself and two other Japanese-speaking gamers living here, in Japan. In this episode, we look at E3 2010. We not only cover the press conferences and announcements of the big three, Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo, but take a look at the third-party developers and what they brought to the show. The following is taken from our discussion on the newest Parasite Eve game, The Third Birthday. If you like what you hear in this preview, please download the full podcast at theoutcastpodcast.blogspot.com or click the link in the information box. Peace.
Well, they did show, and this was probably one of the most exciting things about the show for me, about 30 seconds of The Third Birthday, otherwise known as Parasite Eve 3.
I can't get excited for the gameplay because I don't know what's in it, but the fact that they're showing what looks to be a playable build of this game, yes, it does have me very excited.
Yeah. Oh yeah, if you haven't seen the trailer, we'll include
it's very, 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 very brief.
Yeah, we'll put a link
about
up.
45 seconds long.
And half of it's CG.
Half of it's CG, but you do get to see gameplay, and which appears to be very interesting, as in you are taking over, as Aya, you are taking over people's bodies through their mitochondria and
using
basically
those bodies,
teleporting into their bodies.
Yeah, and using those bodies, you shoot people
in
the face.
You're an agent from the Matrix.
Pretty much.
You transfer into other people's bodies, whoop out their guns.
You ever play Second Sight
away,
on PlayStation 2?
To another guy.
I know of it.
Yeah.
But Square's
looks
own
like it's on the Crisis Core engine.
It does look like the Crisis Core
I think the
engine,
graphics look a little bit better, even though it's very, very brief.
The graphics are graphics, but I mean the engine.
The engine is definitely
Well, if you look at the animation of her doing like the side jump, it looks almost identical to Zack in Crisis Core. But one thing, Square's own official page said this is an entirely new, like basically a reboot of the franchise. Where
I'll disagree.
They said the settings are entirely new.
Yeah, it's not a reboot. It said the settings are new. That doesn't mean it's a reboot.
It said within the space of 2 sentences, it stressed the fact that this is entirely a new setting and story.
No, but look at it this way.
Right, but a new setting and story does not mean that it discounts
one thing we need
things.
to talk about is Square has what appears to they have lost the
license.
franchise.
But before we get into that, let me say one thing, Carl. I mean, look at Tomb Raider. There are many installments in the Tomb Raider series which have nothing to do with previous Tomb Raiders, and all of them are a completely different setting. You presume that it's Lara Croft. You presume that her
I wish more
father's
games
dead.
would do that too.
But either way, I'm saying we don't need to call this a reboot. They haven't gone so far as to say it's a reboot. They've said it's a new setting.
Putting it in a different place. A new setting is different than saying
a reboot.
It's a reboot.
I'll agree with that.
A different setting. Okay, it is in a obviously what we saw, kind of a broken down city.
Yeah.
Okay, that is a new setting.
I'm just saying that
it doesn't discount
two
Parasite
sentences.
Eve
The
1
wording
and
they
2.
use is just like this,
Well, they
this
said
has nothing
it's
to do
not
with
going to
previous.
refer to the past games at all.
Exactly, which is what I'd say.
They can't refer to the past two games.
See, Carl, for me, a reboot means they are going to rewrite the history and have a whole new backstory, and they haven't said they're doing that. They're saying they won't refer to it, and it will be a new setting.
What I've heard is that basically the only thing that remains is Aya and like her mitochondrial powers. Is the only thing that remains standard in this game.
Well, again, like it's just going to be, in my opinion, it's just going to be Xenogears versus Xenosaga.
Yeah.
You don't have the license for the other stuff.
No, I'd say
you can't really refer to it except
but
on a
they
very
got the main
iffy
character
way.
Though.
Well, they probably paid for it.
But that had nothing to do with this.
Let's go back to the main character. So they lost the license for it. Parasite Eve was a novel originally.
Yeah.
It was a novel that was made into a movie.
Made the movie, and it was a damned awful movie.
It was terrible.
It was
terrible.
I never bothered to see it because I heard
the
it was
game
so bad.
was the most. I'd say was the best form of event. Better than the book. Better than the movie. I'd say the game was the best.
Yeah.
Now the first game was an RPG action hybrid.
It was an action RPG hybrid, very similar to Vagrant Story. If you ever played that, the battle system.
I'm going to say no. I found them
great game.
Not similar at all. But
they're very similar. What you're talking about? The whole sphere popping up. You stop.
Yeah, I played both, and I would not put them in anywhere.
You're crazy.
I don't know.
Vagrant Story was a grind fest where you're getting certain weapons to kill very hard monsters.
Well, exactly, but I'm saying the core battle mechanic was
like
almost
the battle
identical.
system?
Yeah.
You running around,
but
you'd hit the attack button, it would freeze frame everything, a sphere would come out showing your range,
Yeah.
and you could select body parts. That's both games.
Yeah, I know, but despite that, I played both, I cleared both, and I never drew that parallel. Because maybe it was because they felt so different, but there was something in that game mechanic that distinguished them to the point I wouldn't say that. I can't say what it is because I haven't played
Which gameplay mechanic?
I don't know which, but they didn't seem to me at all similar.
They seemed almost identical.
Either way, then we had Parasite Eve 2. Which was by far the better game.
More.
Oh my god! You couldn't even say that one with a straight face.
I couldn't.
Which was Resident Evil clone 857.
Well, one of my favorite things,
Blue
even
Stinger
though Parasite Eve has not aged well, probably my favorite thing with that game was the whole. I mean, that game came out in 1997. No, 1998. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
it came out in 1998, and the sense of setting a game in a real world location with actual physical landmarks that you could go to in real life blew my mind. And they brought in that big
New York
one of my
Park.
New York. You go to Central Park, and the buildings
the
were there,
the museum,
but what
Empire,
the sense
Chrysler Building,
loneliness, and the whole mood of that game was amazing. Like evacuated New York City at Christmas time in the winter was just amazing. Going through that deserted zoo at night. It was a really beautiful experience.
Yeah.
The graphics were amazing. I just love the general atmosphere and mood of the game, even though the gameplay mechanics weren't perfect.
Well, yeah,
the sense, just the feeling from that game was amazing.
well, what's really a shame?
There was none of that in 2, though.
No,
You were just in a
2 was a
desert.
Resident Evil clone, but the big thing that's a shame is that I don't think we'll see either on the PlayStation Network
No,
because
well, if
they've
they
lost the
lost
license.
They lost the license.
That's
Yeah.
the license.
But either way, it's coming. We don't know a date yet, but it's looking.
I'd say
good.
next year.
I think that's our most
Next year.
anticipated PSP title.
Yeah.
What else is there? I'm certain Ghost of Sparta.
I want Ghost of Sparta. Yeah, I do want Ghost of Sparta. So not much else on the PSP.